Welcome for coming. My name is Matt Coons. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Milton, and we're glad to get everything started here today. Mayor Lockwood said he's on his way, so I'll take over in the meantime. I would like to welcome Remco Bromett, chaplain for the City of Milton, to lead us in our invocation.
Let's pray together. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for the privilege of being able to approach you in prayer and invite your presence here with us tonight and your empowerment for the things that lie beyond our human limitations. And with that in mind, we ask that you endow the mayor and city council tonight and our city staff gathered here with wisdom and guidance as they attend to the affairs of the city. We also unite our hearts in prayer tonight to pray for our nation at the eve of a historic election and ask that you would lay peace upon our country tomorrow as people head to the polls. We pray that moods will be calm and the atmosphere will be peaceful. And we pray that your hand will guide the outcome of our election according to your will. And last but not least, we pray for our veterans this evening as we approach Veterans Day, in particular for the survivors that are coping with physical, emotional, and mental pain, that you would be their comfort and their peace. And we pray for their families who have sacrificed and suffered with them, that you would be their strength and their provision. And for those that have lost people who served our country in wars, we ask that you would be their comfort and their hope. And we ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, November 7th, 2016 to order. Will the city clerk please call roll and make the general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the November 7th, 2016 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that the individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within this chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Pro Tem Matt Kuntz.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
For the record, Councilmember Karen Thurman and Councilmember Burt Hewitt are absent. Mayor Joe Lockwood is running a little late. This evening, we are honored to have the Sons of the American Revolution lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise?
Ready? Halt. To the right. Face. Salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Left face. Front. Line.
Thank you very much. Okay. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Our next item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 16248.
Okay. Do we have any comments on the agenda? Rick, Joe, Bill? Steve? That's it? All right.
It's nice and long.
So do I have a motion for the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, so we have a motion from Councilmember Longoria, a second from Councilmember Morrig to approve the meeting agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right. Okay, so the next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There is no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember that this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone, stating your name and address for the record, and you will have 5 minutes for remarks. Is there any general public comment?
Yes, sir, we have 3 this evening. The first one comes from Sergey Zagriba.
Okay.
Dear council members, Honorable Mayor, I know Mayor is not here, but I assume he is present here anyway. My name is Sergey Zagreba. First of all, I'm a United States citizen, proud to be a United States citizen. I'm a resident of City of Milton since December last year.
And Sergey, could you give us your address as well?
Of course.
Yes.
I'm a taxpayer of the City of Milton. And I live at 647 Greengrass Lane, the community of Deerfield Greens, less than a mile away.
Okay.
What brought me here, how I become involved in the public arena for the first time, just like one of our presidential candidates just got involved and turned from business to public arena. On October the 23rd, I received a newsletter, 2-page newsletter from the City of Milton, asking citizens of Milton to consider vote for the potential sales tax increase 3.25%, which will help to fund certain infrastructure projects. One of the projects was identified as the expansion of the Morris Road. For the record, my corner of my house is located 31.4 feet from the corner of the existing road. Frankly, it was shock for me to see that the road will be expanded. The reason I come here in the first place, because I've done research, I lived in the area for over 10 years. I moved to City of Milton because of announcement of Mayor Lockwood of his professional experience with protecting the community from overdevelopment pressures. Mr. Lockwood also stated that he will safeguard small town image in a community, a rural feel. And he will guard the city from overdevelopment, ensure that development is a win-win situation for both residents and developers. With that being said, just over the weekend, quickly done research online on all public records available on the expansion of the Morris Road and found a 2009 report here on the Highway 9 in Georgia 400 expansion master plan, which City of Milton, City of Alpharetta engaged consulting companies to do this long-term study how to develop the community. Looking at this report, it's clearly indicated that the community where I lived was identified as vulnerable community, which will be potentially impacted by the development of this project. My house was built in July, August 2014. Based on the report, 17 public hearings were conducted in 2009. More public hearings were conducted between 2009 and 2012. Page 42 of this 200-plus page report clearly saying that surveys were not as scientific in applications. So 1.8% of citizens of that time, population, was involved in this project. None of the citizens who live across the street, who were not even aware that the expansion will happen, were there. I live here in less than a year. With that being said, right away, October 23rd, I received a letter. On October 26th, I was granted, thanks to Mayor Lockwood, to meet with Mayor and Mr. Lucas, Director of Public Works, to address our concerns. During this meeting, it was stated that the city, before granting the construction permit to the developers, have not conducted any assessments of impact on noise, pollution, or other concerns to public health or welfare to people who would be buying this property. In the summary, I know I'm running out of time. What I'm asking you for, I ask Mayor to address it to you guys. I'm asking you to open a dialogue between citizens who are really impacted. The study was promoted development of that community as empty nesters. Unfortunately, we don't have very few empty nesters are there. Majority of people who live there have small children. I have myself 18-month-old child. The reason I moved there because Montessori school is across the street. So now, I'm 31.4 feet from the corner of the road. You guys proposing to expand this, whether it might moving towards me or moving towards Montessori school. So what happened about kids? What happened about the community? And to be fair to all, I ask you for dialogue. We have quite a few licensed engineers on the staff of the city. We have licensed engineers on the board. I myself have 2 engineering graduate degrees, some of them from United States institution, also have an MBA. But the question is, to those ones who are licensed professional engineers, irrelevant their discipline, irrelevant where they register, licensed professional engineer, first and foremost, by any state regulations, obligated to protect health, safety, and welfare of the public. If statements have been made that assessment of noise
Your 5
hasn't been-
minutes has ended.
I'm asking city, thank you for your time, I'm asking city council to consider having a public hearing meeting, put it on the agenda in nearest future, and I'm asking for the transparency of this development. We would like to be engaged in pre-feasibility studies of this project as well as the engineering portion of this project.
Thank you, Sergey. I appreciate
Thank
that. Steve, you get us information as well, and yeah, you'll know more about that, right?
I met with him already.
Okay. Next. Public comment?
Our next speaker is Tim Becker.
Good evening, Council. Tonight I want to address the politicizing of volunteerism in military service. Recently, a politician in Milton has sought to characterize citizens that disagree with his
Address.
15625 Canterbury Chase. Recently, a politician in Milton has sought to characterize citizens that disagree with his policy positions and his conduct as enemies of volunteerism and as unpatriotic. In a recent Milton Herald posting, we were accused of contributing nothing to the community and having empty egos. We were compared to protesters that spit upon returning Vietnam veterans. We were compared to colonists that opposed the American Revolution. As someone who does volunteer and who served nearly 8 years in the U.S. Navy, I reject such comparisons. They are ridiculous and offensive. However, I realize these are acts of desperation. Some politicians have lost trust and confidence of citizens. Their last resort is pandering to volunteer groups in Milton and attacking citizen watchdog volunteers. It is sad and pathetic. Shame on politicians who politicize volunteerism and who politicize volunteer groups. Milton Grows Green is an example of a volunteer group that was politicized. Milton Grows Green never should have been involved in policy making. MGG's charter and processes did not support policy making. Unfortunately, a small minority of MGG members decided to venture into policy making. This requires endorsing one side of an issue, which inherently means taking a political stand. Milton citizen volunteer groups should not do this. Citizen volunteer groups should be nonpartisan and inclusive, not political and exclusionary. Otherwise, these groups limit their membership and diminish their impact. They become divisive. The reason that some politicians are upset about MGG is that these politicians were complicit in the politicizing of MGG. MGG was used by them to advance a political agenda. With the CSO, a shadow process was created to effect an end run around city staff and the city prop manager. This included using private email for city business. Volunteerism was exploited for political gain, not to unite the community. This same exploitation is occurring with regards to military service. Citing one's military service and then comparing citizen watchdog volunteers to colonists opposed to the American Revolution or to activists that disrespected returning Vietnam veterans represents gutter politics at its lowest. Unfortunately, politicizing veterans' issues is a surefire way to diminish citizens' support for veterans' issues. So politicians that engage in such comparisons are undermining the very cause that they are promoting. And such politicians are disrespecting the very veterans that they claim to be supporting. I suspect that religion will be their next area for comparison. At best, these comparisons are silly, and at worst, they are offensive and divisive. These attacks are meant also as a distraction. Certain city council members are looking to distract citizens from their misdeeds, their advocacy for special interests, and their lack of accomplishments as council members. In closing, I want to emphasize that volunteerism and military service are too important to our community to allow them to be politicized. I urge council to reject the transparent attempts of some politicians to exploit these issues for political gain. I once again remind council that 1,800 citizens in less than 4 weeks signed a petition proclaiming their displeasure with the status quo in Milton. Please listen to those citizens and reject these unproductive and divisive slander of private citizens. Thank you.
Incredible.
And our last speaker is Kelly Bates.
Hello, good evening. How are y'all?
Kelly.
My name is Kelly Bates. My address is 13480 Hopewell Road, Milton, Georgia, of course. And I've got some pictures here, if someone wouldn't mind grabbing them so you can look at these as I'm talking to you guys about it, so you can kind of get an idea what's going on here. I'll put them in order for you, okay? We've been back and forth with this. The reason why I'm here is because my husband truly is about to have a nervous breakdown because of a fence that we built. You may remember privacy fence that we had to fight for, got a variance for, approval for, needed to finish. We finished it. We finished it with the floorboard fencing, which was asked to finish with. We did. Now we have received a phone call today from Angela Rambo, maybe his correct name, stating that, again, we are in some, I don't even remember the word she used, I was sitting on the back of the horse when she called, that we are once again going to be filed and for this fence that we've built. The pictures I've showed you that I've sent up there, first is the privacy fence that y'all gave variance for and approved, with the Mark Law approving all the, the plans. We followed every rule there was. He came out, he looked at the stain, he picked out the stain, he picked out every single plant. Honestly, we had to take a loan out for about 10 grand to finish what y'all wanted it to look like. It looks beautiful. In order to finish the fence and to hold and contain our animals, you have to have a gate, okay? There's a picture in there of a fence that is absolutely torn down. That came from two Mustangs having an argument over the fence line. That particular case was in the back of our field, thank goodness. That has happened behind our house before we put the gate up, before we got the A-OK from you guys to go ahead and put the gate. I walked out, I saw two butts standing in the back of my yard, and I thought, oh no. Ran to the gate, where the gate should have been. We shoot them back down. Thank goodness they didn't get out on the road, didn't kill somebody, didn't kill themselves. It's all about safety, all about safety. My big thing is we are trying to do what's called a TIP. It's a Trainers Incentive Program. There's 45,000 Mustangs standing and holding pens at this time. I, myself, am a Mustang. I work with the Mustangs. I'm a trainer. I do the makeovers. I've got 5 standing on the property right now. This proves to you they're not the sweetest things in the world. They weigh anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. Okay? BLM, and I've sent up that also, they recommend, and I cannot work with these animals unless I have a 6-foot fence. That's why that privacy fence was put there. When I say wild, they are wild. Okay? So my big thing is we have tried to follow everything that has been asked of us. My husband has met with the mayor. He's met with city council. He has met with Chris Williams. We've been written up for ordinances that they didn't even 1 through 19 we were written up for. We asked Chris which one we were written up for. His answer was, I don't know, I'll have to look it up. Okay, if you're gonna write me up for something, know exactly what it's going to be. So when Angela called today, we have turned everything over to our attorneys because my husband is at the point he's about to have a nervous breakdown. That's why I'm here. He's sitting in the car, he said, I cannot go. I cannot take a loss in my business. I have got 10 Mustangs standing in South Carolina that I need to go pick up. But until I got that fence up and the A-OK from you guys, they won't give them to me, okay? That is, I don't know how many of you guys know about horses or have ever been around them, okay? But I grew up with them, that's what I do. This, ever since Alpharetta, Milton, now it's Milton, it's hurting our business, and we are trying to follow everything that we possibly can. But it all boils down to safety. These horses get out, they're gonna get in the road, someone's gonna hit them, they're gonna get killed, horse is gonna get killed, they're gonna get killed, they're gonna sue us, they're gonna sue insurance, they're gonna turn around and try and sue Milton. It's all about safety. All I'm asking is, we tried to do what you guys asked us to do. We went ahead, put the 4-board fencing up to connect to the privacy fence that you guys didn't want. It's up, and apparently it's not good enough. I don't know any other way to make it any better other than to put a for sale sign in our yard and sell our 36 acres and move on. I hate to do it because we love Milton. We've been here forever. My husband, his parents have owned the property for 100 years plus. I mean, they've been there forever. And we're just trying to build a horse community. You look at, there's a horse there. You look on your cars, there's horses.
Your 5 minutes is terminated.
Okay. So just please look at those pictures and see what you think.
And Steve, you have her contact information as well. It's Robin, got it.
We will.
Okay. All right. Was that it for the public comment?
That's all, sir.
All right. Thank you. So moving on to the consent agenda, will the city clerk please sound the items?
First item is approval of the July 18, 2016 special call city council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 16249. Next is approval of the July 25th, 2016 regular city council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 16250. Next, approval of the August 1st and 15th, 2016 regular city Council meeting minutes, agenda item number 16251. Our fourth consent agenda item, approval of the August 8th and 26th, 2016 special called City Council meeting minutes, agenda item number 16252. Next, approval of the September 12th and 30th, 2016 special called City Council meeting minutes, agenda item number 16253. Next is approval of a change order number 2 between the City of Milton and Baldwin Paving Company, Inc. for the addition of barrier wall and traffic control devices at the Birmingham Road and Hopewell Road intersection, agenda item number 16254. Our seventh and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of subdivision plat revisions approval. Wisdarium LLC, Bethany Bend, 971 through 974. Minor plat revision. Add land lots numbers 1 lot, 2.9 total acres, 0.34 lots per acre. This is agenda item number 16255.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll move to accept and approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We have approval from Councilmember Lusk and a second by Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, moving on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the first item?
Our first item this evening is a proclamation recognizing World Pancreatic Cancer Day. This is being presented by Mayor Pro Tem Kuntz.
Thank you. Tonight we have a proclamation recognizing World Pancreatic Cancer Day, and we are honored to have Sheila Cosgrove and Mary Jane Scott, as well as her kids Abby and Anthony, and who are here to receive this special proclamation. We appreciate Sheila and Mary and Abby and Anthony and all their efforts in bringing this to our attention and to the need for our community to be aware of how pancreatic cancer has affected the citizens of Milton and many other individuals throughout this world. Now I'm going to read this proclamation, and then I'd like for everyone who is here to please join myself and our city council to come up for some photos if that's okay. So, whereas in 2016, an estimated 53,070 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 41,780 will die from the disease. And whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the third leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the second by 2020, and is the seventh most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women across the world. And whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas approximately 1,090 deaths will occur in Georgia in 2016, and there will be an estimated 367,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed globally in 2016. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in the city of Milton and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in the city of Milton support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the city of Milton are enhanced as a direct result of the increased awareness and research about pancreatic cancer and early detection causes and effective treatments. And now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, Georgia, hereby dedicate and proclaim November 17th as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the city of Milton, and call this observance and attention to all of our citizens, given under his hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on this 7th day of November 2016, Mayor Joe Lockwood. And if everybody would come down for a picture, and we'll hand these out, and as well as please. right. Continuing with reports and presentations, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
The next item is a proclamation recognizing Veterans Day 2016.
Oh.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I do have a public comment. Do we want to hear that after the proclamation or prior?
Public comment for Veterans Day first?
We don't have public comment at this point.
I don't know if we,
No,
so would the council be okay
Is
with
it
that?
I think
It was specific for this proclamation?
Is the council okay with that, or?
That typically would have been a general comment.
Right.
Okay.
But if the council, if the council wants to allow
I-
that, I think that's perfectly fine.
Fine.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, okay. Yes.
Okay, now, okay. That comment is coming from Mr. Tim Becker.
Here we go.
Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase, and I just wanted to be clear, Mayor Lockwood, I asked him ahead of time if it was legal or whatever to speak before council, before a proclamation. He said it was. So that I was going based on that. Tonight I wanted to address council about Veterans Day and the proposed Veterans Day proclamation. I support tonight's proclamation. I myself am a veteran. I volunteered for service in the military, spending nearly 8 years in the United States Navy. I was a nuclear submarine officer on the USS Mariano G. Vallejo, SSBN 658. I literally spent a year of my life under the water, my only glimpse of the outside world coming through the crosshairs of a periscope. I completed 5 strategic deterrent patrols in the North Atlantic. 3 generations of my family have voluntarily served in the military, with my grandfather and brother making careers of it. My wife Kelly also served for 12 years, enlisting in the Navy, but later earning her officer's commission. She served when the military was not very hospitable to women. Like most veterans, I am proud of my service, and I take veterans' issues seriously. Over the last year, I have made many friends in Milton because of my advocacy for clean and competent government. Many of these new friends are veterans, and they share my concerns about the state of our city government. We see a city government that often seems deaf to the everyday concerns of citizens, but snaps to attention when developers come calling. We see a city government that moves too slowly sometimes to address important issues. We see council members that flaunt the rule of law. We see council members that attack private citizens from the council dais, on the internet, and in the newspaper, even questioning citizens' patriotism. We see strong and growing influence of special interests, particularly developers in Milton. We do appreciate the city's recognition of veterans. Thank you for today's proclamation. However, words are not enough. This Veterans Day, let's honor our veterans by recommitting the city to respecting the principles that veterans defended and often died for. Let's honor veterans and all citizens with clean, competent, courageous, and citizen-centric government. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bill?
This proclamation is being presented by Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Thank you, sweetie. At this time, I'd like to have the Sons of the American Revolution come up front and center. We will present this proclamation to them. And just as a little forward, I am also a naval veteran, served my time, and I had my dad and 4 of his brothers that all served in World War II, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather, John Lusk, was a member of the Massachusetts militia and fought in the Revolutionary War. So I too have a tradition of defending this country myself, and challenge anybody to question my own patriotism and dedication, not only to this country, but to this city, where I've been a citizen for the last 20 years. And I'm proud of it. But a more cheerful note, this is a proclamation honoring Veterans Day 2016. Whereas it has been long our custom to commemorate November 11th, the anniversary of the ending of World War I, by paying tribute to the heroes of that tragic struggle, and by rededicating ourselves to the cause of peace. And whereas in the intervening years, the United States has been involved in several other great military conflicts, which have added millions of veterans, living and dead, to the honor rolls of this nation. And whereas the Congress passed a concurrent resolution on June 4th, 1926, calling for the observance of November 11th with appropriate ceremonies, and later provided in an act approved May 13th, 1938, that the 11th of November should be a legal holiday and should be known as Armistice Day. And whereas, in order to expand the significance of that commemoration, and in order that a grateful nation might pay appropriate homage to the veterans of all its wars who have contributed so much to the preservation of this nation, the Congress, by an act approved June 1st, 1954, changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby call upon all of our citizens to observe Friday, November 11th, 2016, as Veterans Day. On that day, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom. And let us consecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. Given under his hand and seal of the City of Milton, Georgia, on this, the 7th day of November 2016, Mayor Joe Lockwood. And also at this time, in addition to the Sons of the American Revolution, Piedmont chapter, I'd like to have all the veterans here tonight, and parents and relatives of veterans, to come forward and accept this proclamation.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to first presentation, will the city clerk please sound the items?
Our first item is consideration of RZ 16-04 to create retaining wall standards in Chapter 64, Article 17, Division 3, Site Improvement Standards. Agenda item number 16-256. Our second and final consent agenda item this evening is consideration of RZ 16-06 to require fence permits for fences erected for agricultural purposes in Section 64-212, fence and wall specifications exemptions. Agenda item number 16257.
All right, do I have a motion and a second?
I move to approve the first presentations as read by the city clerk.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Longoria and a second by Councilmember Morick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right. Moving on to our public hearing, will the city clerk please sound the first item?
The first item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Dortlew LLC, doing business as Manhattan Pizza and Grill, 5230 Windward Parkway, Suite 105, Milton, Georgia 3004. Agenda item number 16258. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, members of council. This is an existing establishment which was Ray's Pizza and now taken over Manhattan Pizza and Grill. The applicant has met all requirements of the city of Milton, and staff recommends approval.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, sir.
All right.
Is the applicant here?
Is the applicant here? Okay, the public hearing is now closed then. Is there any council discussion? All right, hearing none, is there a motion and a second?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to suggest that we approve agenda item number 16-258.
Second motion.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Morick, second by Councilmember Lusk. All right, do we have any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous. All right. Moving on with our public hearing, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Our next public hearing is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Volcano Alpharetta, Inc., doing business as Volcano Asian Bistro, 5316 Windward Parkway, Milton, Georgia, 3004. This is agenda item number 16259. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Again, this is an existing establishment, Volcano Asian Bistro. This will be a change of ownership only, and it'll be effective 1/1/17. The applicant has met all requirements, and staff recommends approval.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
There is not, sir.
All right. So the hearing is now closed. Is there any council discussion? Not hearing none. Do I have a motion and a second?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll move to approve the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Volcano Alpharetta, Inc., DBA Volcano Asian Bistro, 5316 Windward Parkway, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Agenda item number 16259.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Lusk, second by Councilmember Morick. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Well, I just noticed that
You
it's
did.
Volcano Alpharetta Incorporated instead of Volcano Milton Incorporated. When are we going to get our due? Other than that, no discussion.
Other than that, I'm just, all right. So, all right. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. All right, there are no items under the zoning agenda, so moving on to unfinished business, will the city clerk please sound the item?
Our next item is plat approval for 15355 Hopewell Road, land lot 474, minor plat. Create two lots, 2.63 total acres, 0.75 lots per acre. This was previously considered at the October 17th, 2016 meeting of the City Council. This is agenda item number 16260. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, you have on your agenda this evening a plat approval that has been looked at by the council already on one occasion, specifically on October 17th of this year. This matter was reviewed, and in fact, I believe there was a motion.
Can't hear.
You can't hear me?
They can't
hear.
You can hear me now? All right. This matter was, there was a motion to approve by the council, and that motion to approve was defeated by a vote of 4-3. It has now made its way back on the agenda. You know my position with respect to these plat approvals. I think I have made that clear to the council previously, and I believe this is now back to the council for further consideration based upon, candidly, a legal construct that is set up both by Georgia general law, specifically OCGA 15667, which anticipates that in municipalities that have subdivision regulations, such as the City of Milton, before a plat can be recorded in the office of the clerk, it must be ratified by the governing authority, and that same rule is embodied in your code. So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, this is to you, and I'll obviously answer any questions that you may have.
My first question is it, I didn't see it on the schedule, but is it appropriate for any public comment?
I think we typically have public comments before our agenda items, so I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Sue, do we have public comment?
We have 3, sir.
Okay.
First one coming from Mr. Tim Becker.
Good evening, council. Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase. My question to council tonight is, why is this topic even on the agenda tonight? Why are we wasting even more time and money on this issue? Council has already spent nearly 2 hours on the subdivision of one lot into 2 lots. Citizens need to know why this is back on the agenda, and more importantly, who is responsible for it being back on the agenda? And why is it that no issue ever gets resolved in Milton? And what special interest in Milton has leaned on which council members? This issue speaks to the bigger issue of how council spends its time and sets its priorities. I've attended nearly every council member over the past year, council meeting over the last year, and I am shocked by how much time is wasted in this chamber. Citizens are tired of 20-minute PowerPoint marketing presentations for developers. They are tired of long, winding speeches to nowhere. They are tired of long-winded, meandering, Socratic questioning. Recently, one council member even treated us to an extended and rambling grammar school lecture on history of transportation in America. Citizens are tired of incessant, self-aggrandizing campaign speeches. They are tired of posturing, preening, and pandering. Council needs to take care of the business of citizens. Several important issues have been in place since March. These include community septic, 3-acre minimums along gravel roads, and the tree ordinance. Here it is November, and 8 or 9 months have passed, and none of these issues seem remotely close to resolution. I would remind council that this subdivision would not be an issue if council had acted on 3-acre minimums back in March, when I and others first alerted council to these issues. Instead of focusing on citizens' issues, council is focused on protecting its members from ethics complaints and promoting developers' projects. Council wasted over 12 hours on the Ebenezer rezoning that most citizens adamantly opposed. Council is now considering use permits that would open more than 20 AG1 properties to commercial development. And council sure spends a lot of time on photo ops. While council is mired in minutiae self-promotion and nonsense, developers are proceeding at warp speed to to develop the remaining land in Milton with little restraint. The subdivision under consideration is just one more example of runaway development in Milton. It's just one more example of developers finding and exploiting loopholes in our zoning laws. It's just one more example of ineffective governance. It's just one more example of council caving to moneyed interest in Milton. It reminds me of Nero fiddling while Rome burns. I urge council to deny the subdivision of this property with extreme prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. It's the next one.
Our next comment comes from William Shellhorn.
Good evening. My name is Bill Shellhorn. I live at 225 Orchard Bend Trail in Milton, and I'm here tonight to ask about the proposed plat changes for the 15355 Hopewell Road development. I live very close to the property, and I walk up and down Burgess regularly, just about every other day. And if I hadn't read in the city council meeting email summary last week, I would have never known this was even being considered. So first of all, I'd like to know which council member has requested that the item be brought back up for reconsideration. I've heard from other citizens that one of the council members who actually voted no has changed his or her mind, and I'd like to know why. I'd also like to say that I spoke with Jim Toller, who owns property on Burgess. He's a neighbor of mine. Jim was also not aware of this pending change on his road, and I believe he sent you an email late this afternoon opposing the subdivision. You should have it in your inbox, hopefully. And also, from my perspective, if it looks like a duck and it smells like a duck, it's a duck, okay? This is rezoning. You've got a 3-acre lot on gravel, and you want to, use some words and get around that and try to circumvent the perspective of the Milton citizen. As far as we're concerned, that's what the law is, and we are, we're a city and a nation of laws. And so, whether you want to call it a rezoning change or a subdivision planning, it is a significant precedent-setting change to our gravel roads. And I encourage council to treat precedent-setting decisions like this as if they were rezonings and make citizens aware, especially next-door neighbors. I ask that you provide public notification and solicit public opinion before voting on something like this on a Monday night when no one in the city even knows it's taking place. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's a few minutes left if one of the council members would like to step forward and talk about who it is that wants this brought up tonight and why. Thank you.
Our final comment is Miss Laura Bentley.
Hi there, Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. I oppose the minor subdivision plat proposed by Dream Vest Properties. This is this track 2 with a stem coming off Hopewell Road, and that track, the house has a driveway off of a gravel road. This is clearly gaming of the system. We talked about this on October 17th. Our zoning ordinance, our subdivision ordinance, and our comp plan. You all understood and we discussed the intent of those things on October 17th. So now we're here, and it's back on the agenda, and I think you owe those in this room and those watching an explanation of what's changed, and I think that needs to be most definitely made transparent. This opens the door to a serious precedent with our gravel roads. And as we float a $25 million green space bond and we give away 3-acre minimums on our gravel roads, that needs to be discussed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment?
That's all, sir.
Okay.
May I speak on behalf of Greenvest?
We're not there yet.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet. So now I guess we open it up to us. So, is that right, Ken?
I'm sorry, so what was that request to speak? I don't want to act like I knew what that meant, and I don't. What did that mean?
I'm guessing it was the developer or somebody.
Do they want to
speak
provide
on
public
behalf of
comment on the
developer,
agenda
yes.
item? Well, then I don't know why they wouldn't be able to now.
Well,
Do they build a
yeah,
card?
well, normally the way we do it, after our public comment, we ask questions about the specific item.
Oh, it's not just public comment, it would be questioned. Okay, well, that's,
Right.
okay, I didn't understand that. That's
Well,
fine.
my understanding, it wasn't public comment because we'd gone through all the public
All
comment
right.
cards.
Yeah. he didn't have
Forgive
a
me,
card.
there's no card. I
Okay.
got it.
Right.
I did
Right.
not understand.
That threw us off.
That's fine.
Okay. So, all right. Any discussion?
Ken,
Sir.
I just want to make sure I've got the facts straight here. And this will back up from, and Kathy, it might be good for you to get up here. Some point in time prior to the meeting on the 17th, we had a situation where the normal process that we follow for these subdivisions is that they're presented to the city staff reviews them, the city staff gives their approval.
Even perhaps after comments.
Right.
Back, and then once those comments are addressed, then yes, then approval, yes.
And the city council usually approves those approvals or validates those approvals. I don't even know what I want to say. Because ratifies the approvals because, in essence, when the city staff approves them, we then submit them to the county. All right?
Correct. That is.
Okay, so maybe not in all cases the timing follows this thing. In this particular case, the timing was staff approved, it got submitted to the county, and then it came before the city council. Is that fair?
That's fair, but it was an incorrect practice.
Okay. No, understood.
It should have been coming to council for ratification before it was going down.
I couldn't agree with you more there, because we wouldn't be in this situation if that hadn't been the case. But the reality is that the debate that we had at the last meeting, the October 17th meeting, revolved around the delicacies between having already approved and submitted this particular subdivision and having the council's approval support that because it was already done, or having the council be at odds with what the staff had already done, knowing that we were going to head down a path where this was going to be in conflict and we were going to have to discuss it again anyway. Is that a fair
That was
assessment?
Nicely articulated, yes.
Okay.
Something like
So we're just to the point of talking about it again sooner than I think anybody thought. But the point is that staff had already approved this, and that subdivision had already been submitted to the county, correct? All right.
Point of clarification there. This plat was submitted, well, it was approved by staff almost a year ago, and then submitted and recorded at Fulton County almost a year ago. Is that correct?
I believe that Kathy is prepared to go through some of that to possibly answer some of these questions before they're asked.
Yeah, let me, if I might, through you, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to ask Jimmy Sanders to discuss the timing with you, if you would.
Yes, as we have been doing in the past, which is soon to be, well, it has already changed. This plat was first presented in, I believe it was November of 2015. We signed it in December of 2015. The applicant recorded not the copy that we signed, but a copy that was not approved. So it was necessary to bring the plat back in July of this year, in which case we made comments again and made sure that it complied with all the various rules and regulations that applied to this scenario, and that it was in fact signed and it was recorded in July. And now we're here. You've seen it a couple of times since then, And so now we're here to basically talk about why we're here, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I do have a small presentation that I'm hoping will assist you with your deliberations, and that I'd like to review with you the legal basis by which staff reviewed and approved this plat.
Sure.
So, let me just... Here we are. Okay. Again, this is on 15355 Hopewell Road, and this subdivision is to create 2 lots, dividing up a total of 2.63 acres. There is an aerial map that shows you in red the property under discussion. And on that, on the north side is Burgess Drive, on the west is Hopewell Road, and on the east is Burgess Road. Let's move on. There is the plat. The west side plat is track 1, and the flag lot plat on the east is track 2, and I will be referring to track 1 and track 2. I guess visually that you can see the flag lot of track 2 comes out to Hopewell Road and the very north end of that track 2 parcel. Now these are the factors that we considered for our staff approval. In terms of lot area, the total area of this parcel is 2.633 acres. Code section 64-416, subsection E1, states that property of 1 acre with road frontage on a paved road is allowed. Track 1 is 1.521 acres, and track 2 is 1.112 acres, and that's the flag lot, the track 2. So both of them have more than 1 acre. Factor 2, road frontage. Code section 64-416, subsection G, states that along a paved street, the minimum road frontage in AG1 is 35 feet. So that means that that flag, that stem, when it hits the paved road, it must be a minimum of 35 feet wide. Track 2 has 35 feet of road frontage on Hopewell Road by way of the flag or the stem. 3, flag lots. Flag lots are defined in the zoning ordinance code section 64-1 under definitions. Flag lot means a lot where frontage to a public street is provided via a narrow strip of land forming a pole or stem to the buildable portion of the lot. And as I mentioned, track 2 is a flag lot. Factor 4, access on Burgess Road. Chapter 48-384, subsection B states, if a lot has access to more than one frontage, it may not have any private curb cuts on a street that is classified as a collector or higher order street. Hopewell Road is a collector road. Therefore, the driveway on track 2 may not access Hopewell Road, hence the access of the drive onto Burgess Road. And lastly, under the rural viewshed, per code section 64-416, at the time this plat was reviewed, the rural viewshed applied to minor plats. Track 2 shows a 60-foot setback for the rural viewshed. So those, in essence, are the legal factors that we use to review this plat. Thank you.
Any other questions? Kathy,
Yes,
have
sir.
we ever had a condition before where we went through some approval process and then the document, a different document was submitted to the county or whatever governing body we would submit to, and we realized that what got submitted wasn't what we approved, and so we had to get those two things in sync, because that's sort of the basis of this. In December, the wrong document got filed, and so we had to look at this again because of that, right?
Yes, it was incorrectly filed. It did not have my signature on it.
Right.
And so let me ask Jimmy, because he has that institutional memory. Jimmy.
We actually did review the plat the first time, and it did comply the first time when we signed it. The
Right.
problem was what they recorded wasn't the one that
Right.
was
Have there
signed.
been any others?
Have we ever had that happen before?
Yes.
We have? Is it,
There
it's
have-
uncommon?
It's not common, but if the applicant's not real savvy about what they're doing, one problem is if they bring in more than 2 plats and we miss one of them, we don't sign it, and then they take them down and record them, they record one that doesn't get signed, they might record one that doesn't get signed. I have seen plats that were done before we became a city, and it has happened to me since we became a city where this has happened. And fortunately, we've been able to run down and basically fix that problem and be sure that there is a recorded plat that is signed, because without the signature, it's not a valid plat.
But in this particular case, who drug their feet to create a gap between December of 2015 and July of 2016? Was that us that drug our feet, or was it the applicant, or who was it?
Well, the applicant called me about January and asked if I happened to have a copy of the plat, because the one that they had was not signed. And I said, no, I gave you guys everything that I had. And if you recorded a version that wasn't signed, I don't have any more of them. So somewhere in between it got lost. Now, between January and July or so forth, when they brought it back for the second round, we had some communication. I advised them we couldn't issue a building permit for a lot that didn't have a plat that wasn't signed, even though we had signed it, but the one that was recorded wasn't signed.
Right.
And apparently the one that was signed was lost.
Was there, I guess, well, this is going to be speculation because we don't have the one that was lost. The one that was lost is gone. We don't have it. Is the one that we considered as part of the October 17th meeting, is that a good facsimile of what was approved back in December of last year?
I believe it was.
Okay, so there wasn't any material change between what you guys had approved in December and what we looked at a month ago?
It should not have been, no.
Okay, so basically by signing that one, we're just recreating what we had already done back in December.
That's right.
Correct? Okay. And we never approved the original as a council. That never came before us.
No, the way we were handling that before was the applicant would take it down to get it recorded, then they would bring copies back, and then it would be presented to the council.
Right, and we had that on the consent agenda, and we were normally just
yes, it used to go
approving that as
straight
part
to
of the consent agenda. But was that approval that had taken place in December, was it ever approved as part of it? It was never.
And we since changed the process, and so we're trying to get all of those to you guys before they get recorded.
Right, okay.
Bill?
So Jimmy, after, or when it left your office back in December of last year, how many copies? Did you give all of the copies to the applicant? Would they have taken all of the copies that they had brought in for your approval?
I gave them all of the copies that they had given me to sign.
Okay, so obviously one of them was approved by you then, or signed off on it?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess could you reasonably assume that the applicant, and I guess the applicant would be the one to answer that, I guess they would have given the county all of the copies for recordation at that time?
I have no idea. I would just be speculating as to how they were handled after I gave them back to them.
But it was recorded.
I know that it was recorded, and I know that it was not signed.
So where does the responsibility lie then?
The responsibility with the recording lies with the applicant. in the process that we have now, when we give it back to the applicant, they have the responsibility to properly record the plat, because otherwise they don't, it's a legal document that's necessary for the use of the property. So it behooves them to properly handle it and protect it like as if it was cash money, because you lose it, it's gone.
So what force and effect does the recordation have on this whole issue then? Somebody has a signed copy. Why wouldn't all of them be signed that the applicant would have taken to the county?
Because sometimes what happens is they submit sometimes up to 7 different copies, and so I have to go through them and sign each one individually. And what obviously happened here was that one was missed, one was stuck to another. So I didn't sign all of them. I signed all but one. When they went down to the county, they brought that all but one, which was the one I didn't sign, to be recorded. Now the county recorded it.
Well, does the county have a signed copy then?
That could be looked at.
We haven't seen one from December.
We could go down and manually find, if it was recorded, there should be a copy of it in the property records of the Fulton County Clerk's office.
You would think.
There's going to be.
Yeah.
Now, it shouldn't have been accepted, candidly, and if it hadn't been in any indicia that have been ratification by the council, it shouldn't have been accepted. I mean, the statute's fairly clear. Clerk shall not accept for recordation, but, it did. It got filed.
So I guess what I'm hearing is what we reviewed in October. I think that day we discussed that this, at least I was under the impression that all this happened in July of this year. What you're saying is this actually was approved back in 2015 and recorded and submitted and recorded, but we didn't follow, I guess, our process. I'm seeing we got a couple of different things. Our process wasn't clean in the way we ratified, but that we've since changed. That's why we're seeing this come forward on either consent agendas or for subdivision plats. The council will review individually and pull that out. That's the process we are following today, before it goes down and is recorded.
Before it goes down. So it's a 2 change in that we've taken them off consent agenda. If they're a major plat now, we take it off consent agenda and you get to review them each individually, which is change 1. And then change 2 is that you get to review and ratify them before it goes down to the council, to the county for recordation.
In the past, would a normal process have been, this comes to you, you guys review it. If it's approved, signed off on, given back to the applicant, but then it comes immediately to council for ratification?
No, in the past, it would be signed by staff, by me as the representative, and then we would give it to the applicant. The applicant would bring it down to the county to be recorded. Subsequent to its being recorded, we would bring that recorded plat back here and put it on the consent agenda. That had been the process up until the last several months when we changed it.
So that's the process we've been following since we started the city, is we would ratify after it was recorded. So it'd be approved first by, you do the review process, staff would either approve or deny. If you approved it, it's given back to the applicant then goes down, records it. After it's recorded, then it comes back for council to ratify.
That's correct, and we would put it on the consent agenda.
It seemed a little backwards. But we fixed that process at this point. Ken, are you saying that Fulton County, is that our glitch in the process that we didn't ratify it before it was sent down?
No, I'm making a point on the state of the state law. The state law, got it right here. The state law says that no plat of subdivision of land within the city shall be filed or recorded in the office of the clerk of the Superior Court without the approval of the municipal governing authority.
Okay, so
pretty clear to me. It's supposed to be approved by the municipal governing authority before it's accepted for recordation. I'm just suggesting to you that would be another point where this could have been caught. Oh, your plat doesn't have any indication that it's been approved by the city of Milton. Why don't you take it back and get that done? That would have been another point. Now, some jurisdictions address that by simply saying the affirmation by your professional staff and they're stamping it is, in fact, the city of Milton. They don't do that, by the way, in Milton, but that, other governments say is our government's seal that it is appropriate. So that's the way Fulton County does it. That's, in fact, the way Fulton County does it. If the Fulton County Planning Department signs off on a plat, that is Fulton County Board of Commissioners' basically ratification that it fits. We just do this process where your professional staff review it. It's sort of a bifurcated process. They review it, sign off on it, and then your code says it's approved once they sign off on it, and then it comes to you. And again, you heard me say this the first time, and I know it's not terribly satisfactory to hear it, but it comes to you as a formality.
Right.
Just to comply with that state statute.
Right, and we didn't change that part of the process until when?
Fairly recently.
September?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving forward, we understand this isn't the way we're supposed to do it.
Right.
But back in December of 2015, that is exactly the way we did it. Right?
Yes, sir.
So the fact that somebody missed a signature on a piece of paper is immaterial to what the city's normal course of business was. Our normal course of business was to present it to the Community Development Department. If they approved it, it got submitted to the county, and then it came before the council and we approved what was already done.
Yes.
Okay?
That is correct.
So by that standard, we had engaged with a citizen of Milton, a property owner of Milton, and provided them with approval. So all of this stuff that we're talking about right now would be changing history. We'd be going back and saying, you know what? Everything we told you before, yeah, that really doesn't count. I'm sorry, we're going to say it. We're going to look at it again and say it again. Now, the fact that this got delayed because of a missing signature just exacerbates this whole thing. And the other material change that we had between now and then is back then, it was very ambiguous when a property aligned with both the gravel road and a paved road, we favored the paved road for some reason. And we've provided guidance on that now as well.
You're cleaning that up as well.
Right. So this is just like the perfect storm of all bad things that we've been trying to clean up for the last
Well, there are both
months.
some policy issues that have been identified and some procedural issues. Yes.
Okay.
Both.
So I would say we, as impossible as it is, we need to place ourselves back in December of 2015 and recognize that we followed the procedure that was in place at that point in time. And we can't just change our minds.
Well, and the code that Milton has says the final plat shall be considered approved at the time of the certification by the director and shall be presented for ratification to the mayor and city council at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So Kathy, you believe at the time you provided that approval, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Just a little extension on that same point, then would our staff had allowed the applicant to go to the county for approval? Was it their procedure to approve it, then have the applicant go to the county?
I think that is correct.
Yes.
So it was a given.
Yes.
The county wouldn't have approved it, theoretically, and recorded it if it hadn't come from the city of Milton.
Right, and the Fulton County Clerk is not going to be an expert on City of Milton rules. They may have thought very easily that the City of Milton staff certification was all that was needed.
Yeah.
Very likely.
Well, certainly, if he went down to Fulton County, he had a plat there, and wanted it recorded, and it hadn't come through our staff here, would you say they would approve it? Don't answer.
I was about to. I'm glad you stopped.
Yes. Well, I guess the overriding question, going back to Kathy and Jimmy, and especially Kathy in her presentation here, you've cited several parts of the development code and zoning code here. feel assured that what has been done or what you and your staff have done and approved is in total conformance with our codes?
Yes, sir, and that's what I tried to show in my
All right.
presentation.
I want to address that, Councilman Lusk, as well, because you just very quickly, just to tie this down from my perspective, because you've heard me say that I think that your ratification is in the nature of a formality, and I stand behind that. I do. You have a professional staff to do the very thing that you're not expected to do, which is get into the minutia of reviewing every plat. However, I would say that if there was a plat that was put in front of you for ratification that was so wildly in contravention of your policies, I would not advocate, of course, for you to approve it. I don't want that to be sort of a loose end that I'm not tying up there where the city attorney said they have to prove anything that comes in front of them. That's not what I'm suggesting. I am suggesting that in the ordinary course, particularly if your staff stand behind it, I believe that your ratification is meant to be in the nature of a formality. I would not ask for you to approve something in direct contravention of the City of Milton codes. That's why I think it is important that your director has gotten up and reconfirmed the fact that they believe the plat, when they approved it and ratified it the first time, was consistent with your codes.
Rick, you had a question?
I guess what I'm gathering from this, the only reason we're even seeing this, that's before us, two reasons. Number one, somehow Fulton County recorded, even though they recorded it, they recorded one of the documents that didn't have a signature on it, even though you're saying you did approve it back in December, it was recorded in December, and the only reason it came back was it came up that, oh, there isn't a signature on this thing that we recorded. And I guess we had a process issue, because it just doesn't make sense the way we were doing it in the past. Although we had been doing it for 9 years, now we've corrected that process as of September. And I think council, starting in September, said, or a little bit before that, we want to be more involved so we're aware of what is being approved before it's actually signed, stamped, totally gone. But this one, had this gone through normal process, we would have never even seen this. Is that correct?
You see it on consent.
You see it on consent, which at that point in time, it was just on a consent agenda. It was in the consent agenda, and we traditionally had been, those were things that were already approved by both process. We just basically, I guess we've said the thing rubber stamp, which is part of why we said on larger plats, we now want to see them. We want to review them so we're aware of what's going on.
Bill?
And going back to our previous discussion between Kathy and Ken too, and where Kathy cited all of these the different sections of the code here, I think back on the 17th of October, we really didn't have, or at least from what I recall, didn't have this detailed discussion on the different parts of the code and what allowed a plat of this nature. And I think with this detailed description that we've gotten tonight, at least in my mind, it's understandable. I know the issues with the gravel roads. I live on one. And I respect and I honor and I support all of the development policy that we have for gravel roads. But I fully understand how this plat came about and how it was approved by staff and how it was recorded by the county.
Any other comments?
I'm ready to make the motion I made originally.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess the question I've got is, earlier we had the applicant said that he wanted to, I'd be interested to hear, if he requested, just to hear what it is that the applicant wanted to say.
Sure.
Just to complete the record, I appreciate the discussion by the City Council. My name is Abe Sharoni, and I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant.
Can you state your address as well for the record?
Yes, 9 Dunwoody Park, Suite 112, Dunwoody, Georgia, 30338. Just to complete the record and to add to the statements, the history of this matter, the western portion of the subject property was sold many months prior to the October hearing, and certainly many months prior to this hearing. And there's a new property owner with respect to the western portion of the subject property. The eastern portion of the subject property, which consists of less than 1 acre, would be completely useless. It would have zero value if the previous approval of the subdivision were to be reversed. And just wanted to state that for the record, and it would be clearly in violation of various property and constitutional rights under the Georgia Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. And I urge the council to reconsider the vote at the October meeting. Thank you.
Respectfully, Mayor Pro Tem, I do have one late comment card.
Council, we have one late comment card. Do you want to hear it for public comment? Up to you.
Yes, we have in the past.
And that comment comes from Cleveland Slater.
Cleveland Slater, 13670 Bethany Road. Apologize for the late comment card. A couple of quick comments. The fact that this plat's been recorded at Fulton County is completely, in my mind, irrelevant to this discussion. This is all that I've heard is the fact that it's been recorded at Fulton County. I don't know how that's relevant. What's relevant is, does this plat comply with Milton's ordinances and requirements? I want to correct another misstatement, too, that was made tonight. 2 plats have been recorded. The second one that was recorded to address changes. In fact, it's very specific. June 27, 2016, it was signed by a staff member, and it says to address comments from community development. Those comments, I believe, were to address setback requirements relative to the frontage requirements on dual frontage lots that the original plat did not comply with. So the December plat that was recorded is not the same as the July plat that was recorded. That is an incorrect statement that was made. I don't have copies of both of them with me, but I know that was not a correct statement that was made. Again, I wish you would respect 3-acre minimums. Some very surprising information shared by the applicant himself, that he's already sold 1 tract before this plat was approved, and also very surprising that in his mind he believes it's a tract less than 1 acre with double frontage on a gravel road and a paved road. So again, unfortunately, we find ourselves in this situation when this information was brought to council attention back in March and could have been promptly resolved. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Right.
Just a clarification, is what Mr. Slater just mentioned, did we approve, what we're approving today is not the same plat that was approved originally back in December?
The plat we approved in December is lost. It complied with all the rules and regulations when we signed it. What they recorded was not the one that got approved. It did not reflect all the requirements that would have been necessary, such as a rural view shed. And so he's right in that there's a difference between the two. The one that got recorded in December was not the one that got recorded in July. However, the one we signed in December was in compliance. And I did say that when we started.
Jimmy, for all intents and purposes, was the one that was signed in July similar to the one in December?
It's similar to the one we signed in December, but that one's lost.
But the makeup of the lot, was it the dimensions of the lot, the flag lot?
Yeah.
Was for all intents and purposes was it a similar lot?
That's the same. The only main difference was the addition of the rural view shed on the current plat. And it was on the one we signed in December, but not the one that got recorded. What got recorded was not even approvable. but the one we signed was.
So what was approved by staff, you're saying is the same as what was approved by staff again in July?
Yes, sir.
And that's different than what was recorded, because the recorded one was not what was approved,
That's right. Otherwise, we wouldn't have went through that exercise again in July.
of making them change.
That's right.
Jimmy, I hate to jump in again. I don't know that it was entirely identical to the one that was approved in July.
I can't say it was perfectly identical to it, but the one that was signed in December complied with all the various zoning regulations.
Now, clearly, I never saw the one in December, but I'm aware of some minor changes that may have occurred between the one in December and the one in July, but nothing that would be substantial to this conversation.
Seems how we're fleshing out, I guess I'll just ask the question, do we know what those differences are?
If I remember correctly, I believe a section of one of the lots was mitered off as a result of some utility boxes. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, but that was on the other set.
That was on the original set?
Well, that was on the plats. There was two plats, two lots, both divided into two lots.
And there
so
was
they were separate and independent divisions.
And then was there an issue with the?
This was the corner that was mitered off.
Was there an issue with the from a 40-foot to a 60-foot setback on the second one?
No. Now both of the plats were lost in December. The other plat was on Hopewell Thompson was approved at the last meeting.
Well, then I regret opening my mouth. My apologies.
So I guess back to my question, what you're saying is what you approved, what was signed off, what Kathy approved in December of 2015 was the same thing. It's a different document, but that's essentially the same construct of what then was reapproved or approved again.
That's right. To my knowledge, what got approved in December was and signed in December was very similar to what was approved and signed in July. I can't promise you they're totally exact because anytime you handle stuff, changes are made and maybe correcting misspellings and who knows what else. But essentially, as far as the rural view shed goes and as far as the road frontage goes, as far as the access goes, all of that was the same.
Ken, Steve, and maybe Jimmy as well, but obviously, on your opinion with the plat that we're looking at that came to us in July, I think the big question is that flag lot that we have going off of Hopewell. From that, as your best expertise can say, did our staff follow the code on that to create that lot?
Yeah, speaking for myself, I have not seen anything with respect to staff's interpretation of the code that I felt was an error. I think that there is discretion that is embodied in your code, and I think that is exactly what you have professional planners and reviewers to do, and I think they have exercised that discretion. I think that some of those calls that they had made then have now been deemed by the council in a fairly strong way to be inconsistent with how you want future decisions to be made, and you are doing that by clarifying the code, which is exactly the sorts of things you're supposed to do if you believe some of your technicians and staff are not doing things the way you see the vision for the city. So an issue has been identified and affirmative steps have been taken to correct it.
So Ken, the purpose of my questions and my concern in this particular case is that we don't retroactively apply anything that's gone on in the city of Milton since the city originally approved this document. The fact that the document was lost, the fact that the document didn't have the right signature, or any of those things, to me is not material to the fact that we approved something that we believe we recreated in terms of what we submitted to the council that we discussed in October. So if we say that we don't approve this, in essence what we're doing is we're going back to December of 2015 and we're changing our mind because this had already taken place.
That's right, but I think that the previous speaker made a good point. I think this may matter for you, Councilmember Longoria, and maybe other council members, but I'm less concerned about what happened in December, and it is much more of interest to me what's occurred in July. If something has been tendered in July, and if staff have certified that it comports with the codes as they existed when they certified it, I believe your code is very clear on what your next steps are to do. That's where I know that may not be the way you're looking at it, because I think the temporal aspect going back to December matters from the standpoint of we're simply redoing what should have been done appropriately in December. I'm telling you how I've looked at it.
Right. No, I just viewed December as the point in time when the lot got divided.
Yes.
And we made a decision that the flag lot was okay, and we made that the sizes of the lot, we deemed the sizes of the lot appropriate, even though they bordered 2 paved roads and 1 gravel road.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yes, sir.
Because once that happens, we can't undo it. We can't go back and say, oh, yeah, again, I'm sorry, we changed our minds. I know we told you it was okay, but it's not okay. Because if we allowed that to happen, how do we make decisions on anything?
Right, but that decision, though, the December one, was in fact certified by the director, right? It was signed, but it was never ratified by this council, as I understand it.
Okay. At the time, was our ratification done via a deep discussion, or was it part of a, consent agenda?
Point made. I
okay.
You're right. It would not have been the focus of a thorough and sifting debate by this council back in December. I agree.
That's my point.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Ken, the only other question I have as well is at the last meeting, Councilwoman Thurman mentioned a little bit about the difference in the letter of the law versus the spirit of the intent of the law.
Yes.
And obviously we have a spirit of intent, but the question is whether or not a higher court would agree with that spirit according to our letter of the law as well. And obviously there's some conflict here because we're looking at a situation that seems to me to be according to the letter of the law, which is information we didn't have before. The spirit of which is, of course, the importance of our gravel roads that we have. And if this is something that we can look at to change the law down the road, something we can do, but it's important that we uphold our laws in order to be able to do business with those who want to do business in the city of Milton.
Right.
So the question is that interpretation as such, but I want to go back to Councilwoman Thurman's point, because there is some relevance in that, and I just want to know your thoughts on that.
I thought her points were very well made. I get it. And obviously the council wants to ensure that the spirit and intent of the law is followed. Having said that, in the context of land use and in the context of regulations put upon land use, I think the spirit and intent needs to be clearly set forth in the ordinance with some precision, because I think typically when we get into the intent, a court will typically say that if there is a matter of interpretation, and one matter of interpretation benefits the property owner, and the other interpretation benefits the government, or a more restrictive use of the property, typically the property owner wins. So if there is an element of our intent that we want to make manifest in the laws of the state of, in the city of Milton, then we need to write it down and make it clear.
Bill?
Maybe on those 2 points then, would you say spirit and intent more accurately constitutes a policy rather than a law?
Right, and I think that within the confines of that, which we've now made clear in the discretion that you've given your director, I think that she has probably heard that loud and clear, and I think we're taking both proactive steps within the context of modifying our code, and perhaps on those calls that you have given her the discretion to make, she'll make them a certain way going forward. But I don't think that was clear, certainly in December, when some of these initial determinations were made. And so I think this has been a bit of a process for all of us to understand better the intent and policy of the city of Milton, and those codes that need to be changed, we're changing them. Those methods of interpretation that need to be perhaps modified, I'm sure they're being modified. So I think the net of this has been very favorable. It's just been a little clunky to get to the result.
Another question I could have. So obviously, if this is something that we, for whatever reason, if it does get approved tonight, if there is a chance to clarify our code according to those two, there are many that would love to say that there is a precedent that's being established on a vote like this tonight. Tell us a little bit about precedent in land use.
Well, I mean, you've heard me talk about precedent before in the context of land use. I think that was within the context of zoning, and I said that there is very little precedent from the standpoint of zonings because all property is different and all of the various considerations you give to zonings are going to be based upon the property, where it's located, its topography, its size, et cetera. It's very hard to pigeonhole one precedent applicable to all. However, precedent can run smack face in the way of a zoning code change or a plating code change. And so if someone wants to say this is precedent, well, they're being faced with the notion of us changing our code to take away even the most remote possibility there could be any precedent by this, because once we change our code, this all becomes kind of a nullity anyway. This won't ever happen again because you all have changed the code to prevent it from happening again.
So this configuration that we have deliberated on so long, what you're saying is, and I know we've been pushing on trying to clarify this, we're not going to see this come, we shouldn't see this come forward again.
And Councilmember Morgan, if I could, that is a very good question. If I could have Ms. Field address that very quickly, that would help me. But I think that is exactly where we're headed.
Yes, and through you, the answer is yes. We are moving forward in terms of changing the code so that there's no discrepancy between our codes in terms of how we interpret properties that abut gravel roads and how we will treat them in the future.
When do we see that being resolved? I mean, I guess not resolved. When do we see that actually being done?
Yeah, I'm trying. I think it's coming up to the Planning Commission this coming month. I could be wrong, but I know we've finalized some language for it, and we have a definition for gravel roads. I think it went to the Planning Commission last month and got deferred to this month.
But in the meantime, there's a moratorium in place.
In the meantime, there's a
prevent it.
moratorium. That's the most important part. But we are making progress in terms of acting on it.
All right. Anything else? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve agenda item number 16-260.
Fair second?
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion for approval from Councilman Longoria, second from Councilmember Lusk. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that I want to say about this is that the reason I brought up the motion at the last meeting, and the reason I bring it up now, is because we have to support what in fact was a decision by the city to support this. We can't go against ourselves, all right? We approved this. We approved it using the mechanism that we've always had in place, all right? We just need to recognize that fact. Now, moving forward, we better not ever see something like this again, okay? This is not something that, the worst thing in the world is to vote for something that you don't really like. And I don't like this. I don't like the fact that we've got a piece of property that's bordering both a gravel road and a paved road, and we're making a decision contrary to what we all agreed to up here in terms of how to interpret that. But that's not the point. The point is the city staff approved this. I'm going to support the city staff. That was the process that was in place at the time. That's why I'm making this motion.
Okay. Any other comments? Bill, do you have a comment? No?
I totally agree with Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I would as well. The as I looked at this and it came back before us, last time I asked some question on the spirit and the intent of the law, as it was the letter of the law, but as well as the more I looked into that, I understand that there's a obligation for us as a council, as what you mentioned, Councilmember Longoria and our staff as well, to be someone you can do business with in the right way, and we have to honor our obligations. And if our law and our code says something, and it's clear, now granted there can be some ambiguity at times, but if there are some clear and others are following that to a T, and if we need to change the law, then we should, as a government, change the law if we want to change that. That's not the applicant's fault, in my mind. That's not our staff's fault if they follow that to a T. And it's important for us, from an integrity perspective, from an ethical perspective, to make sure that people know that if they do business in the city of Milton, granted we're not perfect, but if we do things according to the words that we say we have, that we need to uphold that. I have no problem with the discussion to determine that, but that's what we've had here in this process. But I can agree with you, Councilmember Longoria, and I can understand. So we have a motion by Councilmember Longoria, a second by Councilmember Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. That's unanimous. All right. Moving on to new business, will the city clerk please sound the first item?
Consideration of a conflict waiver for Gerard and Davis LLP related to preparing an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of fire police services by the City of Milton within Forsyth County for the cottages at the Manor subdivision. This is agenda item number 16261. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, thank you very much. As you know, my law firm represents Forsyth County. My law firm represents the City of Milton. We have been approached by, I believe Chief Edgar first brought this to our attention, that there is a subdivision that is actually in Forsyth County, up in the northern part of the intersection of Milton with Forsyth County. It actually would be approached, and the access for this subdivision, which is called, I think it's Cottages at the Manor, is actually the primary means of vehicular access is Watson Bend Road, which is actually a route of travel from Milton into Forsyth County. So it doesn't really have a direct route of access from Forsyth County. Therefore, the best way to provide fire and police services to this subdivision would actually be from Milton and using Milton apparatus. Well, under the Georgia Constitution, the only way that Milton can really provide those sorts of services in another jurisdiction is by way of an intergovernmental agreement. It's my understanding that the police and fire in Milton are comfortable doing this. I have also independently checked with the sheriff's office and the fire department in Forsyth County. They are very happy because they believe the response times will be much quicker if this is provided by the City of Milton as opposed to Forsyth County. But before I begin to put together what should be actually a fairly short intergovernmental agreement, I do have to bring this conflict waiver to you.
All right. Is there any public comment on this?
There is not, sir.
Okay. Public comment is closed, so Bill?
I think we've been through this exercise previously, have we not?
We
In
have,
the same
sir.
area of town. Yeah. And we approved it previously, right? Well, to just reiterate, the duty of engineers and public officials is protect the life, safety, and public welfare, and I think this is probably a good example of what we should be doing up here.
Is there a motion in a second?
Go ahead. I'll make a motion that we approve a conflict waiver for Gerard and Davis LLP related to preparing an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of fire police services by the City of Milton within Forsyth County for the cottages at the Manor subdivision, agenda item 16261.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lusk, second by Councilmember Morrig. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous. Okay. Will the city clerk please sound the next new business item?
A consideration of the ratification of the intergovernmental agreement for the provision of election services between Fulton County, Georgia, and the City of Milton, Georgia. Agenda item number 16262. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the council, you may not be aware of this, but there is actually an election tomorrow. And as a part of that, Milton also has some items that are up for consideration tomorrow. You may recall previously, I believe in the summer, the City Council had approved an intergovernmental agreement for the provision or the undertaking of that election by Fulton County and the Fulton County Board of Elections and Registrations. You may also recall that shortly thereafter it was determined that Fulton County would actually waive any fees associated with the provision of that service. That was very kindly received, obviously, and the city appreciated that. It was after you had already ratified the IGA. We were going to simply manifest that by way of an informal letter agreement. Fulton County went ahead and modified the intergovernmental agreement to make that very clear, and I believe the more appropriate way for us to acknowledge that is to ratify the intergovernmental agreement that you've already approved once, because the terms have changed, very favorably changed, but nonetheless changed. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that's my presentation. My recommendation is to make a motion to ratify this intergovernmental agreement.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Do we need discussion by the council? None? All right. Is there a motion and a second?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve agenda item number 16-262.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Longoria, a second by Councilmember Lusk. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Will the city clerk please sound the final new business item?
Final item is consideration of subdivision plat revisions approval for Tanglewood Preserve 1, Land Lot 472, final plat, create 12 lots, 16.81 total acres, 0.74 lots per acre. Tanglewood Preserve 1, Land Lot 472, final plat revision, add lot 7, 13 lots, 18.49 total acres, 0.70 lots per acre. Tanglewood Preserve 1, Land Lot 472, final plat revision, change address, 18.49 total acres, 0.70 lots per acre. Agenda item number 16263, Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you have before you a major plat located on Thompson Road, and essentially they all three of these plats pertain to Tanglewood Preserve. And the first item creates 12 lots. The second item adds another lot, being lot 7, which now makes it 13 lots. And then the third item revises a change of address. So those are the three items concerning Tanglewood Preserve.
You have some pictures we're scrolling through to get.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. There we are. Keep going. There's the aerial. And if you move on, there's part of it right there.
A little small.
Sorry.
They must be smaller than an acre.
And then there are more slides. If you can move on to the next slides as well. And then keep going. I think that's it. Yep.
Okay.
So,
So is this approval or ratification? Just want to make sure it can. Chevrolet is the most reported car company in the world. So, is this ratification of the same thing we were just talking about?
This is exactly what we're talking about. This is the process that you have now done. You have formalized now, and this is exactly what you're doing. Yes, sir.
I guess just from a process standpoint, so our ratification or approval of this, then this goes forward to recording.
Let me, Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first plat is a ratification. The other two plats are new approvals prior to recording.
Okay.
Actually, the first two.
First two are ratifications?
First two rounds.
Yeah, the first two have been recorded, and we've changed the process. There was a delay in getting the copies back. Like I said, we used to get 20 copies. They would record it, bring us back copies, we'd put it on the consent agenda. So these first two versions, didn't get the copies until after we had the last meeting, actually. And then they revised it again. When a new development comes in, a lot of times there's a lot of rapid revisions to stuff, and so they sold lot 7 without it being on the plat, so they needed to revise it real quick. And then they found out 2 of the lots had the same address on it, so they had to fix that real quick. So that's why you're seeing 3 versions at the same time, but the last one has not been recorded.
So Jimmy, is this like the sausage being made that we never saw before it started coming before us?
I hope not, but possibly.
So I should make sure I understand. So the first 2 plats are plats that have already been stamped by Fulton and are following the process that we've now changed that process?
Yes, sir.
And the third one, however, is we're getting it approved by the council before it goes
That's
to
right.
Fulton. Thank you. I understand.
And hopefully, we won't have very many more of plats that have been approved by the Fulton County and then come back this way. We are, I think we're almost at the end of that.
Pretty close, I think.
Yeah.
Do we know how many more? Well, let's roll into this.
It's only a couple. From what I understand, they're fairly rudimentary.
Okay.
Okay. You have any more discussion, questions?
So just to be clear then, we're still operating on the previous
I think these are the residual cleanup. I think the policy has changed, but I think there's still some sort of that were in the pipeline that have gone down and been recorded, and as they come back in, they're landing in front of you. But the end is nigh as far as that's going. It's just a few more to get through that pipeline.
So we've gone back and we've looked to make sure that that is the case. We've done an audit or a review to
That's
make sure
correct.
that we've caught those.
That is correct, and this is, I believe this is a hybrid. I think it's a mix of the 2.
Kathy, what was this property beforehand? Just curious.
Haynes' property.
It was what?
Ralph Haynes' property.
Ralph Haynes, so it was all farmland?
Yeah.
All farmland? So, and we're not gonna have any equestrian opportunity on this when it's all done, right? It's just me just making a comment. Anyway, do I hear a motion or a second?
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 16-263.
Second.
Okay, we have motion by Councilmember Morick, second by Councilmember Longoria. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's unanimous. Okay. They asked me if I want to report on anything. Do want to report on on Councilmember Lusk and the great job putting the markers in with the Ronnie Rondon's group as well. He and I wrapped our hammer away, and that ground was hard, and a lot of
Pre-drilled. I don't know what your problem is.
but it was a great thing, I think, for everybody that we have the veteran markers that are out there in Crabapple and in Deerfield, and just want to appreciate that we're doing that. So, yeah. Anybody else? Anything else to say? The only thing else I will say with the elections tomorrow, just remember we're all Americans, and that's important. We will have the greatest transfer of power, peaceful transfer of power in civilization history, and I think that's a positive thing regardless, and for everybody that fought for us to have that right, I thank you as well. So, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, I guess we'll move on to the staff reports.
I'm going to be brief tonight with mine in anticipation of the T-Splosh vote tomorrow.
Be the judge of that.
I would encourage you to eat dinner and bring your sleeping bags for all follow-up Public Works reports if the T-Splosh passes tomorrow. So I'll be brief tonight. But the T-Splosh vote is tomorrow. We are beginning our planning for our capital implementation, our normal capital implementation tomorrow. But if the T-Splosh vote does pass, that obviously will change. December 5th, we'll be bringing back our CTP for final approval. So if there have been any comments or questions, the consultant with Kimley Horn will be back on the 5th to make our final presentation and vote on the CTP. Obviously, the T-SPLOST will weigh in quite heavily on our project recommendations with that approval. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. And with that, I'll leave it, unless there are any questions for me.
That was short. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll pay for it later. Police?
I'm going to talk about mostly non-police stuff. For starters, Stacy, could you talk about coffee with our Milton veterans?
Sure. On Friday is Veterans Day, obviously. We all know about that. And we are honoring our veterans with free coffee at 4 different locations, Mugs and Crabapple, Scratch Fresh, which is on Highway 9, Wilburn Rudy's Farm Table, which is in the Birmingham Crossroads area, and a new one this year is Whitetail Bicycles and Coffee Shop, which is also in the Crabapple area, just a little further down from there. And this is from 7 to 10 in the morning on November 11th, and hope to see you guys there.
Question on that. Are we going to have staff members there to greet the
absolutely.
veterans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at each location.
We will.
Also, this Saturday, the opening of Providence Park.
Oh, wow.
So I believe you all should have received a digital copy of the invite we're putting out. I'm hoping you did. The last thing I want to see is the looks I'm receiving right now. So I'll find out what happened with that. So this Saturday morning at 9 a.m., we'll be opening up Providence Park. Hopefully with all of you. And
it's when? What?
Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. And invitation went out to all the neighbors that live right adjacent to it. A lot of them have been doing helping us quite a bit over the past year of keeping an eye on the place and some general upkeep. So they'll be there as well. And it's going to be an exciting time for the city of Milton to get back into that park. It's ready to go. The trails look incredible. There's been a lot of volunteer work in there, and I think you're going to be really excited to see what it looks like. And it'll be a great opportunity also for us to get together as a community and decide the future of that gem that's in the middle of our city. I'll find out where the invite is. On the police side, just a little bit on our strategic planning. One of the items that we moved forward with was the establishment of an Explorer program. So our Explorer program is actually it's taken off quite well. We just were in a state competition where our young explorers took second in one of the exercises there. So I got to tell you, they are a very energetic, very committed group to this. I don't know if you had a chance to see them over at Crabapple for the Crabapple Festival and their uniforms over there. Very proud about what they do, and they're very, very into moving this program forward. In fact, we have a few officers who have really put a lot of their personal time into this to make this happen. But I got to say, the students are equally responsible for the success of that program. Very impressive for a first-year program. So we're excited to see that. Figured I'd end on a good note. Stacy's got one more thing.
We also have the Milton Literary Festival going on this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And it is November 11th, I believe there's a private event going on that evening. And then November 12th on the Saturday, it starts at 10 o'clock. There's 30 authors presenting. Matt Coons is also one of those, and included in those authors. And it is at the the Alpharetta Government Center in the Crabapple area.
And the 11th is at Wilburn Rudy's.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, right. So, and one other thing I want to say as well, thank you for the staff for getting the information out on T-SPLOST and the revenue bond as well. I know that was a big ordeal to help our residents to have the information to make the decision. And I know we're at that point, so I just want to say that was a good thing.
Thank you.
So, Steve, were you guys done? I wanted to just do a
Absolutely.
follow-up. So we had a couple of citizens that came up earlier in the meeting and talked about specific issues they're having with the city. Okay, one gentleman is concerned about impending construction that's going to be close to his property. The other citizen was worried about a fence that sounds like a nightmare of a fence. Now, I don't have all the details on either one of these issues. I just wanted to make sure that we're working with these citizens, that we're trying to understand what their situation is. We don't need to say anything about, what kind of action plan we have or anything like that, but we do a good follow-up job with folks when they have these kinds of concerns. And I just want to make sure that we don't, that we are doing the job that needs to be done in terms of making sure that we listen, see what can be done, if anything, see, how we can assist our citizens when they need it.
Certainly, both of those situations are very familiar to me.
Yeah.
And we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're looking out for the best interests of the city of Milton.
Okay.
Do we have anything else? Is there a motion that we adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn from Councilmember Lust, second from Councilmember Longoria. No discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's unanimous.